Welcome to Open Scrolls. Today we follow Israel into the heat where lips crack, tempers sharpen, and a single question echoes between dunes. Is the Lord among us or not? We will hear two desert stories that look alike at first glance and then part like waters, both about water from a rock. Both about need and obedience, both revealing who God is and how we respond. First, at Rephidim, Exodus 17, God tells Moses to strike the rock, and water pours for a thirsty nation. Presence goes ahead of provision. I will stand before you on the rock, and hardness becomes a river. Then, decades later, at Kadesh, Numbers 20, God tells Moses to speak to the rock. The people still thirst. The rock still waits. But the instruction changes. Under grief and pressure, Moses strikes again. Water still comes because God is faithful to the thirsty. A solemn boundary falls around His holiness. These are not just travel notes, they are heart maps. When we are empty, God is near. When He speaks, how we obey matters. Tonight, we will walk with elders who witnessed, a leader who interceded, a people who drank, and a God who made mercy flow without letting reverence fade. If you are carrying a dry canteen or a heavy staff, this is your night. Let's open the scroll land. Listen for the sound of water in the wilderness. Israel moves as the cloud moves. Hund hisses under sandals. Goats bleat. Children ask the question every parent dreads. Is there water? The place is Rephidim, and the canteens are light. Freedom from Egypt is still fresh, but liberty does not erase biology. Bodies need water. Fear can sound like anger, and dehydration turns the tongue into a sword. Moses answers with honesty. Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord? The word test matters. Thirst is real. Testing God is different tasking if He is with them at all after He has shown them again and again that He is. This becomes the wilderness rhythm. Need rises, complaint follows, and a leader must choose between self-defense and intercession. Moses chooses to cry out, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." That is not drama. It is danger. The desert exposes motives, tempers, and expectations. In this furnace, God is not absent. He is forming a people who learn Him, not only His power to get them out, but His faithfulness to keep them alive. Rephidim will get a new name by the end of the Damasa testing and Meribah quarreling. But before the ink dries on a map, there is a moment of raw choice. The people ask, "Is the Lord among us or not?" That sentence will be the hinge for everything that follows. If He is, there is water somewhere, even if no one can see it. If He is not, then sand wins. This episode answers that question without a lecture, with a rock. The Lord answers Moses with instructions that sound simple and ceremonial, yet are packed with meaning. Go on before the people, He says, lead from the front again. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, witnesses, memory keepers, fathers who will tell the story right. And take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, the staff that has already humiliated Egypt's gods, parted a sea, and become a sign that Moses doesn't work miracles. God does. Then comes the promise that puddles the soul with hope. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb. God does not say, "Strike a thing and see what happens." He says, "I will be there." Presence precedes provision. The geography shifts. This is not just any boulder. It is a rendezvous point with the I Am. Moses is to strike the rock, and water will come out, enough for the people to drink, people, flocks, herds, an entire nation. Imagine the elders' faces when the first ribbon of water darkens the stone, then bursts into a sheet, then becomes a stream. Cups fill, skins swell, mouths gulp, and the camp exhales as if a giant hand had been gripping its throat and finally let go. The miracle is not flashy. It is merciful. No thunder, no lightning. Just the most human of gifts from the least likely of sources, abundance out of hardness. Moses names the place Massah and Meribah to keep the lesson branded on the map. Real thirst turned into testing God. Real leadership turned into intercession. Real presence turned into water. The staff in Moses' hand is not a wand. It is cedar and memory, instrument and testimony. The elders have seen it. They will tell it. God stood on a rock, a slave people drank, and the desert learned a new word, ruver. Why a rock? God could have led them to a spring or scraped dew into jars. Instead, he chooses hardness to host mercy. A rock is what the heart feels like when fear and fatigue have baked it silent, heavy, ungiving. When water pours from what should never yield, Israel learns two truths that become portable. God is here, and nothing is hopeless when he speaks. Rocks also anchor memory. Sand reshapes fast, water carves and moves. Stone remains. The elders can point for years. They're Horeb, that's where he stood. In a storm, people need the kind of stories that do not blow away. We drank from a rock is a sentence a child can carry into a future famine. It also replaces a lethal sentence. Is the Lord among us or not? Every sip rebukes that doubt. There is more. The rock at Horeb linked with Sinai's provision to covenant. God is not a vending machine. He is a partner. He gives water not as a bribe to keep them quiet, but as a father who knows his children will die otherwise. He also teaches through names. Massah and Meribah become a cautionary label. Carry water from the miracle. Do not carry forward the quarrel that almost drowned you. For leaders and households, the scene becomes a pattern. When pressure rises, we tend to strike people with words and projects with hurry. God says, strike what I show you, how I tell you when I stand there. Obedience is not cleverness. It is alignment with presence. The staff raised, the elders watching, the people drinking. This is what it looks like when a community receives life through ordered trust. The rock is not magic. It is meeting place. As the last cups are drained, Amalek arrives, Exodus 17 to 8-16. It is as if the desert, offended by the presence of a river, sends its raiders to seal the spring. Thirst tested the camp's trust in God. Conflict now tests its trust in one another. Joshua takes men to fight. Moses climbs the hill with the staff of God in his hand. Aaron and Hur go with him. Water from the rock becomes strength for the field. What God provided is not a private luxury, but fuel for obedience under fire. Moses raises the staff, and Israel prevails. His arms sag, and Amalek pushes back. The story that began with, "Is the Lord among us?" now answers with a picture. God's banner over a people who have learned to depend on him and on each other. Watch the flow. Presence gives provision, gives partnership. God stands on the rock. Water flows. Moses lifts the staff. Aaron and Hur hold his hands up. Joshua fights faithfully below. No one is everything. Together, they become victorious. This interlude matters to our water narrative, because miracles can be misfiled as emergencies only. The text won't allow that. The God who quenches thirst also trains hands for battle and hearts for unity. He writes a memorial, "The Lord is my banner." The same elders who watched the rock now watch a hill. They will tell it as one story. God gave water, then God gave victory, both through weakness admitted and obedience practiced. By the time Rephidim recedes behind them, Israel has learned two lines that belong together. He is with us, and we are with him. Water out of a rock had already taught them to move beyond panic into prayer. Amalek teaches them to move beyond isolation into interdependence. The desert is still the desert, but it is now populated by people who have drunk and learned. Years pass, graves dot the wilderness. A new generation has grown under cloud and manna. Now, Kadesh in the wilderness of Zinon, another dry place, another complaint. But the mood is heavier. Miriam dies and is buried, Numbers 20-1. Grief thins patience. The people gather against Moses and Aaron. Why have you brought the Lord's assembly into this wilderness that we should die here? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Notice the regression, as if Egypt were a safe reservoir. Pain edits memory. Loss amplifies blame. Moses and Aaron do what they have learned to do. They fall on their faces at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord appears. God speaks this time with a different instruction. Take the staff, assemble the congregation. Speak to the rock before their eyes, and it shall yield its water. Then give drink to the congregation and their cattle. The pattern remains staff, assembly, rock, but the action shifts from striking to speaking. This is not an arbitrary change. It is a maturity lesson. God is teaching His people, land His leader, that His word, not force, opens provision. Leaders often stumble not at first obedience, but at obeying new instructions that resemble old ones. The old way worked. The new way requires listening again. The scene is charged. Grief in the air murmurs like bees, the weight of decades on Moses' shoulders. It is possible to be rightly burdened and still miss the precise obedience God asks for. Kadesh will test not God's presence. He has already promised water, but Moses' response under sorrow and strain. Moses takes the staff, gathers the assembly before the rock, and speaks, but not to the rock. He speaks to the people. Listen now, you rebels. Must we bring water for you out of this rock? The pronoun slides wrong under pressure. Then Moses lifts his hand and strikes the rock twice with his staff. Water still gushes out abundantly. People and animals drink. Provision comes because God is faithful to the thirsty, even when His servant's obedience is flawed. Yet heaven does not applaud. The Lord says to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not believe me, to sanctify me in the eyes of the people of Israel. Therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them." The place is again called Meribah, quarreling this time, not only for the people's dispute, but for the leaders' failure to treat God as holy in their method. This is a sober paragraph, and it belongs with the first rock story precisely so we don't turn miracles into methods. At Rephidim, God said, "Strike." At Kadesh, He said, "Speak." Moses, stung by grief and provocation, fell back on what had worked before and overran the boundary God set for this day. The cost is personal and public. He will see the land, not lead them in. Leadership can win water for people and still wound the picture of God if zeal refuses the fresh word. The mercy in the scene remains bright. God still gives water. He does not make a nation pay for one man's misstep with dehydration, but He does hold His servant to the accuracy that His holiness deserves. The lesson is not do nothing. It is do exactly what He says. Rephidim, strike the rock. God stands there, water flows. Leaders intercede. People learn that presence means provision. Kadesh, speak to the rock. Grief weighs down, Moses strikes. Water flows, God is kind, consequence lands. People learn that God's holiness matters as much as His generosity. From the first rock, we learn trust. When fear asks, "Is the Lord with us or not?" Living water answers, "Yes." From the second rock, we learn reverence. When pressure pushes us to perform, obedience that sanctifies God in public matters more than reputation or results. God is not a technique. He is Lord. We do not make water. We receive it by doing what He says. Both scenes teach community. Elders witness. The assembly sees. The story becomes shared memory. At Rephidim, Aaron and her hold up hands. At Kadesh, Aaron stands beside Moses when the verdict falls. No one walks alone. Even consequences are carried in company. Israel must trust God with a leader who will hand the baton to another. Moses must trust God with a future he will only see. Finally, both texts insist that need does not cancel worship. We are not wrong to bring God our thirst. We are wrong to treat Him like a spigot we can kick open however we please. Holiness is not the enemy of help. It is the frame that keeps help from turning into presumption. The rock is mercy. The method is worship. Where does this land in our lives? Perhaps you are in a Rephidim moment. Your canteen is empty, your temper is thin, and the question, "Is God with me?" is louder than your prayers. Hear the answer in the elder story. He stands on the rock. You may not see the seam, but if he says, "Strike, obey, and drink," provision often comes from places you've written off as impossible. Or you may be at Kadesh. You know God can provide. You've seen him do it. But grief and pressure tempt you to force what he has asked you to speak. Put the staff down until you've listened again. Ask, "What is today's instruction?" God's newest word does not cancel his nature. It invites you to honor him precisely. For leaders and parents, this is a map. Intercede before you instruct. Gather witnesses. Treat his presence as the point and his provision as the gift. When he says strike, don't substitute speeches. When he says speak, don't substitute swings. And when you fail and at some rock, you likely will let his mercy still water the people and let his holiness correct you. If this video was helpful for you, share with someone who needs to hear this too. Subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. God bless and see you next time.